142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharim, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem, Boachem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech,
Malachei
Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu Nile Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeichen, Tzeichen Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Last Friday night, I was in Jerusalem. I'm going to talk more about my trip later this evening. But I was having Shabbat dinner at the King David Hotel, which I'd only stayed at once before. It was a Federation trip. I was not paying the bill. With past President of Israel, Ruby Rivlin. And we sang that same song. We sang it in a slightly different context because Iran had not yet attacked, but the feeling was palpable throughout the country. In fact, all day in Machne Yehuda, in the Jerusalem market, and walking in the streets of the old city where I was earlier in the morning, there was this sense of foreboding, this sense of something was coming, and an anticipation, but yet also unknowing of just how vast it would be and what it would be targeting. And so Friday night, when it hadn't happened yet, the calculation was, okay, so it's probably going to happen tomorrow night. And so as we sing Shalom Aleichem, we talk about having the angels come and spend Shabbos with us. That sense of protection that the angels bring throughout our Jewish texts, and the idea that they look into the windows of our home to see if we're ready for Shabbat. And if we have prepared ourselves, then the angels come and they spend Shabbat with us. And in the context of Israel and its preparing for what they knew was to be an impending attack, there was this sense that if we were prepared and if we were ready and if families were together, then maybe there would be this protecting shelter of angels around us. And that was in the context that we sang Shalom Aleichem in this dining room of the King David Hotel. And by the way, the past president, Ruby Rivlin, has a lovely voice. Just the memory of that and being able to sing it here in our own sanctuary, now having been on the other side of that attack and seeing that the angels came not only from the heavens but also from some of the surrounding countries as well, from the United States, from Great Britain, from France, and miraculously, surprisingly, from Jordan and Saudi Arabia in their own way as well, is a bit of a prayer being answered. So that was my memory of Shabbat last week. It's nice to make new memories this week. We'll begin with the lighting of the Shabbos candles, and I want to invite all who would like to come stand with us as we light Shabbat candles. So come on up together if you'd like. There's just a few of us tonight. Come stand around. Thank you.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של שבת.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. A Shabbos of peace and a Shabbos of rest. Shabbat Shalom.
That was a beautiful moment and a beautiful way to start Shabbat together in community. You know, the rabbis and I are here every week leading services. Same old. But it's you all who show up and participate and bring your own beautiful presence that really make this space what it is, make Shabbat what it is for our community. So it's good to see you. We're going to start with our Kabbalat Shabbat Psalms, page 130, Lechu Neranena. Lechu Neranena L'Adonai Naria Letzurishenu Nekadma Fanav Betodah page 134. Zameru l'Adonai bechinor v'kol zimra. Zameru l'Adonai bechinor v'kol zimra. Zameru l'Adonai. Zameru l'Adonai. Zameru l'Adonai Turn now to page 138 for Lecha Dodi, imagining Shabbat as a bride marrying the people of Israel. This is our beloved special day. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor bezachor bediborecha, ishmianu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo liteved v'litchila. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor haberacha. Merosh mikedem nezucha, sof ma'aseh v'machshava tchila. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 3. Mikdash melech im melucha, kumi tei mitoch avecha. Ra לשבת במקבחה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 5. Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki ma'oreh kumi ori. Uri, uri, shir daveri, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat b'nei Shabbat nekabela. We'll rise and face the entrance for our final verse. Boi v'shalom, ateret vala, gam besimcha u'betzola. Toch emunei am segula, boi chala, boi chala. Facing front. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat nekabela. Everyone. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat Gala, Nei Shabbat b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We'll remain standing. We'll turn to page 263 for Chatzi Kaddish. As we've welcomed the Sabbath bride, we also welcome Nico Slavinsky, the hardest working man in the Vancouver Jewish community. We're glad you're here, Nico. Really glad. You're allowed to sit down at any time. You've got to be exhausted. Page 263.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
ילמד דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה, ובזמן קריב ואימרו, אמן. יהי שמרם המבורך, לעולם ולעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמיד מעלמה ואימרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Please be seated. A prayer for evening, Ma'ariv Aravim, page 265. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidbaro Ma'ariv Aravim, b'chokhmah poteach sha'arim, ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים במשנותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו.
אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני,
שמו
המעריב הרבים, אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אתה. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך, לעולם לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני,
שמו
אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברתם בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אלוהיכם אמת.
Page 270, a song of redemption in a new melody.
Well, it might not be new, but it's
Well,
definitely
It's not like new
thematic.
historically new, but new for this Shabbat.
That's true.
Yes.
It is special for the Shabbat.
So you can name that tune.
Exactly. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בכל Nora tehilot osef ele micha mocha ba'elim Adonai micha mocha nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot osef ele. What was that melody?
I think it was Hey Jude, wasn't it?
Adirhu. It's in the Haggadah. You'll see it later. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני
שמו.
גאל ישראל.
Page 271.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Wednesday, I think it was morning, maybe it was afternoon. Wednesday morning, Cantor Cohen and I had the privilege of sitting on a Beit Din, a panel for conversion for a gentleman who flew all the way in from Kelowna to come to the mikveh here in Vancouver and to sit with us and another rabbi for the Beit Din. He was in his mid-80s. He'd been married for 30 years to a Jewish woman and decided in this moment that he wanted to become Jewish. And when we asked him to articulate why, of all times, with rockets and missiles flying towards Israel and Jews on campuses and elsewhere not feeling safe at all, and in your mid-80s, after being married for 30 years to this woman who clearly loves you whether you're Jewish or not, why now? It was difficult for him to articulate, but fundamentally, I think what we took away from it was the sense of community, the sense of being a part of something, and that even after 30 years of marriage and 80 years plus on earth, and his golf community in Kelowna and his other circle of friends, that being part of this tribe, of this people, was the missing piece in his life. And I found that just tremendously inspiring, that for those that are Jews by choice, for some of us, we were born into it and we didn't get to choose, and I'm always inspired by those when placed in front of them all of the religions of the world like a buffet line, they would pick the Jewish serving, the Jewish helping, and to do so in the context of this moment in particular reminds us, I think, just how fortunate we can be if we embrace our tradition. To be Jewish in name only is one thing, and it's its own nomenclature, I guess, its own moniker, I should say. But to then actualize it through Jewish practice, through coming to synagogue, through community, and through ritual, through Vishamru, through observing a Sabbath in some way, just like you are now, is to, I think, fully embrace the blessing and the possibility of living a life of meaning through Jewish tradition. So page 272, Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ימריירי, שבת שבת, ימריירי, שבת שבת, ימריירי, שבת שבת, שבת שבת שלום. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ימריירי, Shabbat, Shabbat, yum ba-da-da-da. Shabbat, Shabbat, yum ba-da-da-da. Shabbat, 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 Shalom.
Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Hilatecha. Eternal God, help us find the words that we might speak with you in prayer. Will rise, page 273, the Amidah.
Adonai Sfatai Tiftach. Adonai Sfatai Tiftach. Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Bekoneh Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו בשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך? מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. Page 279, the top of the page, Ritzeh.
Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu ve'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam ve'ava tekabel u'tehile ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael. ישראל עמך, אל קרוב לכל קורב, פני אל עבדיך וחוננו, שפוך רוחך עלינו, ותחזינה עינינו, בשובך לציון, ברחמים. ברוך אתה, אדוני, המחזיר שכינתו לציון.
Modim anachnu lach shatahu Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu le'olam va'ed. Sur cheinu magen yeshuenu atahu lador vador. For the good in us which calls us to a better life, we give thanks. For the strength to improve the world with our hearts and our hands, we offer praise. For the desire in us which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful. For life and nature, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of being.
ועל כולם ויתרומם, יתברך ויתרומם, שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד. וכל החיים יודו חסלה, ויהללו את שמך באמת, האל ישועתנו ועזרתנו, עזרתנו סלע. ועל כולם, ועל כולם, יתברך ויתרומם, יתברך ויתרומם, שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך, הטוב שמך, ולך נאה נאה להודות.
A Song for Peace, page 282, Shalom Rav.
שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם.
Take a moment for own private prayers and meditations.
Bottom of page 665, 665, way at the back of the book. We have text from the Haggadah that says, Bechol dor vador, in every generation we must see ourselves as if we personally came out of Egypt. I wrote an article about this quote in the shofar, if anyone has read the shofar, but if you haven't, there's some incentive. I love it, and I think this is one of those key points at our siddurs, right? That we have to imagine ourselves, not just our ancestors or a story that we tell about coming out of Egypt, but we ourselves were there. And how do we feel putting ourselves in that mindset, especially this year, with everything going on? This is a traditional kind of folk melody that I grew up singing at my Seder at home. It goes like this. Bechol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo keilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim. That's the whole thing. Bechol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo כאילו hu yatsa mimitzrayim. Bechol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo כאילו hu yatsa mimitzrayim. You got it. Bechol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo כאילו hu yatsa mimitzrayim. One more time. Bechol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo כאילו hu yatsa mimitzrayim.
We offer prayers for healing at this time for Sherry Fiedler, Lucy Tamayo, Hildy Barnett, Yoel Robins Paradise, Virginia Kozicki, Frederick Farhada, Marina, Karen Bernstein, Esther Brower, Max Koningbauer, Shannon Wall, Itamar Ben Ruth, Reuven Pinchas Ben Zara, Adele, Miriam, Virginia Edwards, Nini Rosticker Shipman, Yeshayahu, Natalie Warmelli, Claire Golumbia, Carla Zivit, Janet Gelb, David Shlomo Gorney, Andrea Yarsbiak. If there are others in need of this prayer for healing, I invite you to stand now and call their names out one by one. You join with our cantor in this prayer for healing. God bring a refuat nefesh, renewal of the soul, refuat guf, a renewal of the body, to all those who are sick and in need of healing. We can say together, Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Cantor. Wanted to just take a moment to make a few announcements. First of all, reminder that this Sunday at 2, well, first of all, there's religious school this Sunday, and I guess even before that, there's services tomorrow morning. And then at 2 o'clock at the Art Gallery is the rally to bring them home, to bring the hostages home. Please join us there for that. Saturday, tomorrow at noon, is our Queer Torah study group with Cantor Cohen. So come for that and a study of topics ranging from the weekly Torah portion to Jewish holidays and world events. Our men's club on Thursday, April 25th, is welcoming the Honorable Jack Austin, West Coast advocate in Ottawa. I guess between those two things is, of course, Pesach. So hopefully you have a place for Seder. If you don't, we can probably still find you a place. So if not, please let us know. And if you have an extra space and would like to let us know about that, we do get some last-minute phone calls usually over the weekend. So if you have an extra spot and want to send me or the office an email, that would be great after Shabbat. And then, of course, our second night Seder is, there's an adult Seder and a family Seder here at the synagogue. Those details are online. And our Sholom Shishim is going to be having their, we can call them Seder games, I guess, on Tuesday, April 30th. I guess it's after Seder. In the afternoon, that's Mahjong and Canasta and Bridge and Scrabble. Cost is a toonie per session. Such a deal. So come and check that out. And then the last thing I'll mention is that on May 1st, we begin our Taste of Judaism course. This is a wonderful opportunity for those that are, I would say, Jew curious to come. It's a 3-evening, it's a free class. It's about 2 hours. This year is with Rabbi Brown. One night on God, one night on Torah, one night on Jewish peoplehood. It's a great, what it is, a taste of Judaism and perhaps as an introduction to Judaism course. So come for that. And I guess the last thing I'll say is that on Thursday, May 2nd at 7:30 is our next class with Yossi Klein Halevi, our resident scholar. It's a different course than the one he taught earlier in the month, but on the same theme of the music of the war and the music of Israel in this moment. I understand, because I was in Israel, but Rabbi Brown was here, that the first class was phenomenal. So if you missed it or you're interested in continuing along in those studies, you don't need to have gone to one to go to the other. So I invite you to come and sign up for that. It's only for Temple Shalom members. So we're fortunate in that regard. Cantor, anything else to add? No? Okay. My friend and teacher, Rabbi David Wolpe, reminded me and his thousands of readers and students that throughout Jewish history, the Passover Seder has operated on 2 levels of time. Rabbi Wolpe explained that the Haggadah recounts the past, the story of both the Exodus and the Talmudic rabbis who expounded upon it, the words making all of the ideas come alive for the participants, those historical moments of slavery and freedom and redemption and study and storytelling, songs and symbols. Passover is quintessentially a celebration of the events of Jewish history, of our Jewish past. He continued that at the same time, Passover is also about the Jewish present. In medieval times, Jews felt their predicament of that moment as parallel to that of their ancient ancestors, that the despotism and persecution with which they lived lent power to the tales of the Haggadah in their present circumstance. The Seder was not a meal about what was, but a meal about what is, a story about what is. And as we sit down to Seder this year, we have the same experience. In our own day, the Seder is about the historical liberation from Egypt that is threaded through and referenced as part of the master story of Judaism throughout our calendar, our prayers, and our rituals. Every time we recite the words Yetziat Mitzrayim, to exit, to leave from Egypt and its narrow spaces, as we just did earlier with the Ve'ahavta, as we will in a few moments with the Kiddush, we are reminded of our past, reminded of where we come from, what we have been through, and the gratitude that we must consider for where we are, even if our redemption is incomplete. But it is also about the present. Our Seder this year is about the hostages in Gaza, about an Israel that has evacuated 10% of its residents from the north and the south, 10% of its whole residents from the north and the south, because it's not safe to live under the rain of rockets, not safe to live so close to the borders. It's about an Israel that feels vulnerable and unsafe. And while I was in Israel last week on our Jewish Federation's mission, many were sharing photos of past 1948 Haggadot, or I should say post-1948 Haggadot, written by kibbutzim that reframed the Seder to the present circumstance of that moment in a safe and secure Israel. One version from those early years after the establishment of the State of Israel rewrote the 4 questions as follows. How is this night different from all other nights? On all other nights, our towns were besieged and we were surrounded by enemies inciting us. On this night, we sit secure in our home and our towns are flourishing, written in a kibbutz in the 1950s. How is this night different from all other nights? On all other nights, we would celebrate our festival of freedom when we were controlled by a foreign ruler. And now we are a free people in our free land in the State of Israel. On Passover, the past becomes present, but also in this moment, the present reminds us of our past, of the vulnerability of the past. The years before the establishment of the State of Israel, before the IDF, before the kibbutz felt confident, safe, and secure enough to rewrite and reframe those haunting 4 questions into the positivity and the security that only a free people could write in its own land. We are told in the Haggadah that in each generation, as our cantor just sang, one must see oneself as if we went forth from Mitzrayim, from that narrow place, from Egypt. But the reverse is also the case. In each generation, we must see how we are still enslaved, still held hostage, still brutalized by cruel pharaohs, still held suspect in the eyes of those that see in our creed and our culture, and even, albeit our meager numbers, not a people desperate for freedom, but a less than human group to be demonized and derided, denied freedom, denied a state and land and home, the security of such. The Seder is again the story of what was, but also it is the story of what is. And so I want to share with you some observations from my mission to Israel this past week. There is much more detail on the blog that I wrote and we shared in Temple Happenings, a blog I still have yet to finish. I don't know if I'll ever get to it. But I wanted to highlight just a couple of important things. One was who was on this mission and why did we take it? I asked Ezra Shenkin when he invited me and Rabbi Infeld and Rabbi Rosenblatt. Rabbi Rosenblatt couldn't attend because of a prior obligation, but invited the 3 rabbis of the congregations up and down Oak Street to go. I said, well, why are we going? Because I'm happy to go to Israel, but what's the purpose of the mission? And he says it's education both ways. For us to educate them and for them to educate us. And I said, well, who is the them? And the them is not something we publicized because there was some security concerns, both publicity-wise and safety-wise around that. But we brought with us on this trip an indigenous leader from BC, provincial elected officials, civic leaders, Jewish community volunteers, Jewish professionals, and major donors. The frame for this trip, that's education both ways, we had things that we wanted them to see. A missile attack by Iran, by the way, was not on the itinerary. We hadn't arranged that in advance. It cost a lot more. But it was abundantly relevant to the lived experience of Israelis today. And we had things that we also wanted to learn from them, to see through their eyes. One example was the non-exclusive fact, and I mean non-exclusive in that it's not only Jews that can make this claim, Palestinians can as well. But the non-exclusive fact that Jews are indigenous to the land. How would this be seen by an indigenous leader, by BC public officials who spend so much time and leadership and thought and words and energy to speak about indigenous rights, to use language, and to express those inclusive values in their work? The case was made and the conclusion was clear, that you cannot separate Jews from this land, even though that is what is so often argued on our university campuses. That political Zionism is a movement, but Jewish connection to the land is an anchor. A historical fact that has not diminished over time. It was not diminished by the colonialism that was enacted upon us as Jews in the land, or exile, any more than time, colonialism, and exile has weakened those claims of the First Nations themselves. We should have allies with the First Nations of Canada. And the fact that we do not is a failing of our own efforts to explain and tell our story as much as it is to our abdication of the field to the activists that have usurped our own indigenous narrative in an Orwellian doublespeak. I learned that from our indigenous leader who was on the trip. That was actually her insight. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that the North, which we don't talk about much, and I hadn't visited in December, but we did in April in this trip, the North is at war, but it's an undeclared war. So it's not at war, but yet it's very much at war. The North is an interesting place. It's largely impoverished. It's 60% Arab and 40% Jewish. That 60% Arab includes Druze and Christians as well. So let's say 60% non-Jewish and 40% Jewish, predominantly Arab. The economics of the North are such that they don't have the resources to provide all the services that would cause somebody to want to live and move to the North, and so their population diminishes over time, and now they are relocated and displaced from their homes. If you live 4 kilometers from the border in the North, the government will subsidize your relocation. If you live 4.5 kilometers from the North, you'll still need to relocate because you are still within range of missiles that often don't trigger the Iron Dome because they're line-of-sight weapons. But you're not paid to relocate by the government, or at least not fully subsidized. And so the costs of relocation to the individual families and to the whole area are significant and ongoing. And that lack of resources continues to challenge those that live in the North, as we saw in the hospitals that we visited, in the cities, in Tiberias where they had been relocated to, in the schools that have to relocate as well. Just some basic things that I hadn't really thought about. It's a war, but people die of natural causes also. So if you live in Metula, but you're now living in Tiberias and you die in Tiberias, you can't be buried in Metula, in the cemetery where maybe your family has been buried. Where do you come to sit Shiva? You sit Shiva in a hotel room with your family members that come in from around. That's not sitting Shiva in your home. If you want to see your doctor, and your doctor is in Kiryat Shmona, but you're not in Kiryat Shmona, and your doctor's not there either because Kiryat Shmona is being bombed on a daily basis, then you have to arrange, as was done in Tiberias, for your doctors to come to a hotel ballroom and see you there. Everything from not being able to be with your pets. We had family members that were in different hotels because one had to stay with a pet, but another needed to be in this particular hotel because that's where the services that they were providing to the community were being rendered. But their husband couldn't stay in that hotel with the dog, and so they're in 2 different hotels, and yet their children who are in special sports programs or special education were relocated to other parts of the country. We visited Shalva, and there were people from the North that had special needs that were now living in Jerusalem and Shalva, in that center, which is remarkable to be able to do that, but not surrounded by all the other supports and friends and community that they were used to. The third thing I wanted to share is that Israel feels depressed, and there is a sense of vulnerability like I didn't find in December. There is a sense of despair. This country, whose national anthem is Hatikva, the hope, it does have a sense of hopelessness. I'm not saying that that is forever, but I do want to say that it is true. I want to be honest about it and not sugarcoat it. There is a sense that they can't get the hostages back. They can't bomb Hamas into submission. That there is no obvious or obtainable solution to these problems or strategy, and that time and numbers are not on their side, on our side. And that was palpable. In December, when I was there, much of the divisions of Israeli society had been pushed to the side. We knew they were still there, but they were being glossed over because of the need to come together and to face and confront the enormity of the challenge that was before them. That challenge is still enormous, perhaps even more so now as they understand it better. But the divisions are divisions are very clearly cracking and dividing society. And so there is that sense also, that though we're in this together, we're not together in it. And all of that hangs over this country. I visited with some friends in Modi'in just before I left, and you could just feel it in the air. In my conversation with them and the few neighbors that I met as we were sort of visiting on their Pesach, on their balcony, this real sense of where do we go from here without an answer. So I left Israel Saturday evening around 5:30. My sister, who's a Jewish day school teacher and has been at the same school for 30 years, finally after 30 years was given the Teacher of the Year award. My sister's name is Debbie. I don't know if she's watching. And I said to Debbie, my sister said, Debbie, it took you 30 years to get this award, but had you not gotten it this year, I would still be in Israel. Nico just got home. I mean, I left, the trip was supposed to end on Monday. I left Motzi Shabbos Saturday night, even a little bit earlier than that, so I could get back to San Francisco for this award ceremony. And honestly, that's what got me out before the missiles. Because I left at 5:30, and they closed the airspace around 7:30. I was perhaps literally on the last flight out. But I wasn't going directly home. I had a 14-hour layover in Munich, and so I landed 4 hours later in Germany, went to my hotel room, ordered a pizza, and then watched rockets fired from Iran towards Israel, which they told us would land in like 8 hours or whatever it was. They must have had a stopover also, a connecting flight. And it was bizarre and surreal to feel safer as a Jew in Germany than as I was as a Jew in Israel. As I watched the rockets arrive closer towards Israeli airspace, we began to hear reports of intercepts from US, British, Israeli, and even Jordanian jet fighters and anti-missile systems. Even Saudi Arabia participated in tracking the missiles and aiding in Israel's defense. For at least that moment, we were not alone in the world. For at least that moment, I had a little less sense of despair and a little more sense of hope. For at least that moment, the world saw the great danger, the great threat that Iran poses, not just to Israel, but to the entire region and indeed the whole world. Surreal indeed. A Jew safe in a German airport, thanking the US and the UK and France, when 80 years ago the world was largely silent and we couldn't get the Allies to bomb the rail lines to Auschwitz. Now those same air forces flew in defense of the Jewish state alongside an Israeli air force that did not exist to bomb the rail lines 80 years ago. Surreal that Jordan and Saudi Arabia, who 50 years ago on Yom Kippur invaded Israel, and that night they helped protect our people and the Jewish state. If the world can change so much in 50 years, in 80 years, maybe there is hope. With leadership and wisdom that it can change for good. We end our Seder with next year in Jerusalem, and for a holiday that looks backward and to the present, this is an oddly forward-thinking proclamation. It's the answer to history. For all of the years that we could not be in Jerusalem, next year we will be. And it's a statement of the fact for the present that we are here now. And we will be here in Jerusalem this year and next year and every year for years to come. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. A Zis and Pesach, a joy-filled Passover, and Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Tiyeh. We're going to continue with Aleinu, page 586. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום להשבותה אל לבבך. כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת. אין עוד ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, Ushemo, Ushemo, Ushemo Echad.
Please be seated. A reading before Kaddish Atom, before the mourner's Kaddish, this on page 583. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as they live, we too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. On this Shabbat, we recall those who died during this past week or these past 30 days, whose families are in the midst of Shiva and Shloshim. As I read the name of your loved one, if you could rise, please, and remain standing. Tessie Canavan, Selwyn Cawley, Isabel Ann Ingram Kleber, Dr. Monty Kowal, Maureen Newman, Marilyn Perrin, Ruby Sachter. And those for whom the Ortsite, the anniversary of the death of your loved one, is on this Shabbat, if you two could rise here or at home and remain standing. Rosalind Adarim, Susanna Berkovitz, Milton Bernstein, Edna Bjorst, B. Braille, Yuri Chatsney, Doug Cowling, Joanne Susan Cox, Jonathan Feltengoff, Morris Flom, Helen Gassoy, Gary Gutman, Claire Howitt, Samuel Kahaya, Ben Karp, Roger Lewis, Robert Lockitch, Michael Margolis, Daniel Nabarro, Alvin Nerad, Jack Ornstein, Irving Panoff, Evelyn Platel, Pauline Weinberg Rappaport, Betty June Remick, Phyllis Rudnick, Ethel Scholl, Conrad Sheffrin, Harry Sheftel, Aaron Stabsky, Sam Stabsky, Dr. David Norman Schuster, David Bernard Silver, Wolf Smoos, Larry Sprackman, Max Springman, Linda Vickers. If there are others who come to say Kaddish to remember a loved one for any reason, or if a name I've mispronounced, if you could rise and call them out as well. Looking around the congregation, we see those that have stood in mourning, and we want to stand now by their side, providing the comfort of our presence. As we turn to page 598 for Kaddish Tome, we invite you, those who wish to join the mourners, in this prayer. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yomad yivrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. V'yit adar v'yit aleh v'yit alal shemei kudisha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiron be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom v'mamav, u'ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us, and we say together, Amen.
Amen.
We're going to conclude our service with Kiddush and with Motzi and then a closing song, right? That's the plan. Okay. Mason, you want to do Kiddush with me? No? I don't know. I just hadn't seen you in a while. You did such a great job at your bar mitzvah. I thought we could do it together. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You want to do it together or you want to do it by yourself?
I don't know. What do you want?
We'll do it together.
Okay.
Okay, you hold.
Okay.
And we'll bless together. Okay? Come here close.
Okay.
Vahi erev vahi boker yom hashishi vayachulu hashamayim va'aretz v'chol tzva'am kol Elohim b'yom hashvi'i miklachto asher asa vayishbot b'yom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa v'orech Elohim et yom hashvi'i mekadesh oto kivo Shabbat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen, amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'yahavav ratzon inhilanu, zikaron le'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehila le'mikra kodesh, זכר יציאת מצרים, בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Amen. L'chaim.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the grape juice, not the wine, right?
It's grape juice.
Okay,
It's
just
very
checking.
watery.
Yeah, it's very watery. Well, it's not budget cuts, Mason. That's what it is. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Take a piece.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. יאללה לה לה לה
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And a thank you to Alex Perrin, who's helping Levi on our tech desk this evening. Alex, thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.